Over the last week, there's been a lot of discourse about how unhealthy Sneasler is, and I want to push back on that. It's undoubtedly a good Pokemon, but its rise has been largely due to metagame trends, and it has some big weaknesses that people should be taking advantage of. So, let me explain. Sneasler has risen to prominence because its main competition in Urshifu and Iron Hands were both banned from Regulation H. Furthermore, Fluttermane, which outspeeds it and knocks it out, is also banned from Regulation H. And the truth is that Sneasler is only good when it moves first. Now, we've banned most of the faster Pokemon, so Sneasler is the speed ceiling of the format, with the notable exception of Dragapult, which it's often paired with. The Poison and Fighting coverage covers for the Fairy and Steel types that want to switch into Dragapult's Dragon Darts, which makes it a really strong pin. And if you're moving after both the Dragapult and the Sneasler, you're probably going to lose to that combination of Pokemon. But that combo was not very common at Baltimore Regionals earlier in the year, and Baltimore Regionals shaped the metagame. So if you look at the top 8 teams, not a single Pokemon outside of Basket Legion in Rain and Choice Scarf and Annihilate outsped the Dragapult or the Sneasler. These teams are basically reliant on Porygon 2 and Grimmsnarl for speed control, and neither of those guys like sitting in front of a Sneasler. So, of course, it's no surprise that when this is what the metagame looks like, Sneasler is going to run rampant, and that's exactly what happened at Dortmund Regionals 2 weeks later. Furthermore, the Pokemon that you'd expect to do quite well into Sneasler have fallen off. Talonflame is a great example of this, because it was everywhere at Baltimore Regionals, but only one made top cut, and it was nowhere to be seen at Dortmund as a result. Similarly, Psyspam was another archetype that was hyped up, and it was common at Baltimore, but the versions that did end up doing well didn't utilize Trick Room, and they instead relied on Delphox and Espathra, and Delphox in particular has some of the same problems as Sneasler, where it's a really good Pokemon when it moves first, but it's a lot worse when it gets outsped, and of course, it is outsped by Sneasler. The traditional Indeedee Armarouge or Indeedee Hatterene teams do quite well into Sneasler. It's not much of a Pokemon in those matchups. Not to mention, the Drifblim teams that did well at Dortmund shreds Sneasler with both Drifblim and Indeedee. Sneasler also struggles to hit the Ghost types and Poison types, namely Goldengo, and I'd argue that the best Goldengo teams from Baltimore are quite weak to Sneasler with the exception of the Goldengo itself, whereas at the finalists at Dortmund Regionals both had a Goldengo on their team, but they also had a lot more tools to enable the Goldengo to beat opposing Sneasler and Sneasler teams. And of course, the other two Ghost and Poison types in the format are Dragapult and Sneasler itself, so yeah, have fun playing the mirror. But there's also Annihilate, and there's Basket Legion, and yeah, you gotta deal with all the other tools they have, but that's what team building is. We've already seen people start to innovate to beat Sneasler, and in particular, Scale Shot Dragonite is something that Japan has been using, largely because of how good it is into Sneasler specifically. So, Sneasler is undoubtedly one of the strongest Pokemon in the format. I'm certainly not going to argue that. It has fantastic offensive coverage, it has a great speed tier, and it has support moves like Fake Out or Coaching that give it so much utility. But I think it also caught lightning in a bottle at Dortmund Regionals, and people are going to build their teams to beat it now more than ever. Yes, Dire Claw is a high variant move, it's very annoying to play against, but we've team built to beat Swagger Thundurus, and Dark Void Smeargle, and Gmax Hatterene, and Snowcloak Articuno in the past. Putting a Covert Cloak or a Lumberry on a Pokemon is a concession to Sneasler, but it's one that you might have to make. Or you can just play the odds and know that was a conscious choice that you made in team building. I just gave you a bunch of options that were all underrepresented and do quite well into Sneasler, and I think we're going to see a number of these do quite well at Louisville Regionals and the rest of the format. So, if you want to complain about Sneasler, by all means, go ahead. I won't stop you. I love complaining. But if you want to win, you should focus on analyzing the metagame, understanding common Pokemon's weaknesses, and then building to beat those threats as consistently as possible. So, that's my little rant. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, and until next time, I will see you all later.